Welcome to episode 2 of Under the Influence, where an influencer sits down with an influential person and we have a conversation under the influence. Cheers.
Cheers.
I am here today with Congressman Greg Landsman from Ohio. He's not maybe as well known as some of your Jasmine Crockett's or your, who else, AOCs. But I've been following Greg Landsman's career here in Congress for a little bit, and you need to know who he is. I like the guy. I like what he's doing. I like what he stands for. So, Representative Greg Landsman, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So this is only episode 2.
Okay.
I appreciate your willingness to jump in with me before I even establish the show.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. What I like to do, the way I do this is, the first half of the show, we're going to take off the congressman, and you just be Greg, and I'll be Jolly, and let's just talk about shit that's not politics.
Okay.
Just to know a little bit about you. Now, heads up, I did research you. Okay. I do my fucking research. And, but, you know, let's introduce you to the people as Greg. Then later we'll get into some more politics.
Like you went on the internet or you talked to my wife and friends?
I shall not reveal my source. I just tell. I did used to be a military intelligence, so human intelligence collector, fat. So
Really?
I did. Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah. I was a humaner. I spoke Korean, Chinese, learned Arabic later. Planned on doing it 20 years. You know, 1 3-letter. And then
What's one thing that you can share about gathering human intelligence that would be good to know? If I'm trying to get something out of somebody,
elicitation, right?
yeah, what is this? Like, what's the strategy that, is fair for you to tell me?
I think that the most important thing that we learn,
And sometimes it's not nefarious. I just want to
Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand. I'm trying to learn.
Yep.
And so I'm like,
I think one of the most important things we learned about, questioning, especially as it pertains to elicitation, is to ask around your PIRs. PIRs are your priority intelligence requirements. So whatever I'm trying to get, I'm not going to ask that, right? We're going to ask around it. And by the way, it's Shan baseline.
They say that. I'm sorry. And
You're good. You're like me. You have a thought.
yeah. I know, but because I have a 13-year-old son and a 15-year-old daughter, and that immediately resonates because it's like, my wife and I were talking about this yesterday. We want to ask a specific question to our son, but it's obviously not working.
Right.
And it's understandable. Like,
Just ask around it.
so you asked around.
Ask around it. And then, and the way I do it, especially when it comes to children, is say, I don't spank my children. I don't believe in that shit. And I barely even ground them because consequences after about an hour, you're doing it for fun. So what I do with my kids is I'm like, hey man, I'm not trying to get you in trouble, but dad's got to understand you. And I set this idea that I'm not trying to raise a good kid. I tell them, I'm not trying to raise good kids. I'm trying to raise good adults. Yeah. You're going to be an adult a hell of a lot longer than you're a kid. And when they start trusting that dad's just not out to get you, but dad's really out to help you, they open up a little bit more. And that approach has worked for me. It's like an approach, interrogation, the approach of, hey, I'm not trying to be your enemy. I'm not trying to get you in trouble. In fact, I hate getting you in trouble.
Yeah, I'm ride or die.
Yeah, that kind of works for me. So, but I'm supposed to be on the interview, Greg. All right. Now, this is my interview.
Cool job.
It is. I love that my kids hate it because they can't lie to me. And my oldest son always tells his friends, well, your dad wasn't an interrogator. So, first game we're going to play here. All right. This is a word association game. All right. Now, the idea of this game is you have 5 seconds to name 3 words that are associated with the topic I did. Okay?
All right.
There's drinking involved, but you learn those rules as we go.
Okay.
Okay? So I'm going to name a category. You say 3 things associated with that category. You got 5 seconds to do it. I start off real easy to warm you up. Sports.
Entertainment, family.
What would the third word be? Entertainment, family. Oh, yeah, you have to drink, right?
Oh, I have to drink because I didn't get it.
Yeah, and I drink because we drink.
Sport. I mean, like, sure, the word I was trying to avoid was sadness because I'm a Bengals fan, and it's just like it makes it's the most toxic relationship I have in my life.
Right.
But Bengals, because when I was in 6th grade, the Bengals went to the Super Bowl. It became my entire identity, and then from that point forward, they lost against the 49ers.
Yes,
brutally in the last minute, and from that point forward, with the exception of 2023. We were terrible.
Yeah, as I was going to say, Cincinnati's had like these blips of hope.
Yeah, both of our baseball and football teams do the exact same thing. They give us every year. They give us like a month of like excitement and hope, and then they punch us in the face. So it was sadness. The third word was sad.
But nothing against Cincinnati always.
No, I love them so much that it hurts.
That's exactly, I can relate because I'm a Panthers fan.
Yeah.
Grew up a Panthers fan. And we only made the Super Bowl one time and we lost on some bullshit. And so, my thing is, when I think about football, I get sad because I love football.
See, sad is a word.
It's a word.
I know.
So why family? Is this something you do with your family?
Yeah, particularly my son. Oh, no. All of us go to our soccer. We have a professional MLS soccer team. So the four of us do that. Although my son and I sit in the Bailey, the fan section. That's our thing.
That's cool.
But for Bengals games, that's just my son and me.
That's dope. Next word. You got 5 seconds, 3 words. All right. Hobbies.
Work. I dip, which is a weird. And if I let myself drink.
Yep, like dipping.
Yeah, I dip.
You dip?
Yeah, I dip.
No shit.
It's not a hobby. It's just
yeah.
It was the 3 words.
Neither is work.
Wait.
Work
is not a hobby.
It can't be a hobby. Like my hobby by definition.
Clean. I clean when I'm home on the weekends. I love to clean. I love to fold laundry.
Wow.
I know, but those aren't hobbies either. I don't have hobbies.
If you love to fucking do that shit, that's a hobby.
My wife, a couple of years ago, we were in the kitchen. It was one of those random but horribly significant moments. She said, "What do you love?" I said, what are you doing? Are you starting to fight?
Right.
No, I'm curious, what do you love? Do you love, she said, I love getting in bed at night. I love my bed. I love my coffee in the morning. I love reading a book. She said, you don't really love anything. It's like your family.
Yeah.
And I thought about it. I was like, I love smoking. Because I used to be a smoker. And then I switched to dip. And so it's disgusting. Don't do it. It's
a horrible habit. I have a relatable story. So I smoked for 20 years and I was a 2-pack a day smoker. And when I tell people I love smoking, they don't understand it. I fucking loved smoking. Yeah, correct.
Fucking best.
But I realized I got to quit. Shit's horrible. There was that treat. And I did a dipping thing for a while because in the Army, my first deployment to Iraq, we were told when we're outside on patrol, you can't smoke. And I was like, you can't fucking smoke. You can never tell me you can't smoke. I immediately have a heart attack, right? So I was like, what the fuck do I do? So my buddy's like, Karen's Kennedy Bills, Copenhagen long cut.
Threw that in a grizzly long cut.
Oh, really? Threw it. I ended up being a fan of Skull, actually. But
I grew up on Skull.
And so I put that in. I was like, wow, this did the trick. It did the trick. So I ended up this whole fucking deployment in Iraq dipping, which then turned into chew, Red Man chew.
Oh, that I can't.
Yeah, I used to fucking chew the shit out of Red Man. And then
I have mad respect.
Then I got back and I was like, okay, I got to quit chewing. Got back to smoking. Long story short, when it came time to quit smoking, I tried to dip as a way to quit smoking, but I said, this is stupid. I'm just trading one for the other. And I ended up knowing I've been quit smoking now for 9 years. And all nicotine. I do no nicotine now. I use vape. Back when they first started coming out, I vaped. So it got me my nicotine. And then I lowered the fucking...
Are you done?
I'm done. October 4th, 2016, I quit my last nicotine. I haven't had any nicotine. So
I went the opposite route. Did the exact same thing. I put it up in high school. I grew up in Butler County. Most of us dipped or smoked.
So it's like the country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. And then I'd get to a point where I was like, I'm smoking too much. And then I'd go to dip. And then my lip started running after 4 or 5 years. So then I go back to smoking. So I've been and to me, I've found a loophole. I let it whatever the cells are doing. And I've obviously no medical professional has.
Yeah, this doesn't sound scientific at all.
No. This is in my head. I'm dipping right now. I've been dipping for the last 3 or 4 years.
Right.
I'm proudly, the minute I start to be like, you know what, it's time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give my jaw a rest. I'm gonna start smoking.
Why they smell vape? You guys just heard it. I can't. The pretty hand.
I know I can't.
So when I first started doing it, it didn't hit strong enough as a cigarette. So I didn't like it. Then I bought this really fucking strong vape. That when I hit it, it felt like I was hitting a cigarette. And you get the nicotine, so your body's good.
It's my favorite thing to do at night, though. One or the other.
I tell you, I relate.
Can I just say one thing? Because I say this to my kids. This is why you never ever start. Never ever start. Don't touch it. Don't go anywhere near it.
Lindo. My audience is 25 to 44-year-olds. They've already started as they're doing.
All right, the sooner you can quit.
Yeah, bingo. All right, here you go. Here we go. This is going to be a fun one. All right. 3 words. As soon as I say it, what come to mind? You got 5 seconds. Books.
Don't read them.
Do you not?
That's 3 words. You got those are books I've read. There's like 12.
But your wife reads.
My wife reads every night.
What does she read?
She reads nonfiction, fiction.
Yeah. My wife reads the fantasy books.
She doesn't read fantasy. Sometimes she will, but it's this person's novel or that person's novel or she's a book club.
Yep. Yeah.
I've just
my wife.
I'm smiling about with joy because I love my wife, and but she always tells me about her books.
So that's like reading.
Yeah,
it's like reading by indirectly.
I read all day. Right. For the record, I wake up.
Work. Yeah.
And I read probably 5 to 10, depending on the day, different newsletters with all the news.
Mm-hmm.
And then I read throughout the day, journals, whatever. The point is I'm reading. The idea of sitting down with one book.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the last book I read was a couple weeks ago or months ago. It was probably more like months, but was of Boys and Men. And it's a book.
I think I've heard of that.
It is a book about what's happening with boys in this country, and there's enough science and enough commentary that the book was good. I mean, it wasn't like,
what do you mean?
One article doesn't do it justice. The issue. I mean, there's no whole you start with the outcomes. So if male suicide rates are record high. Isolation rates, graduation rates are down bad,
right?
And a whole host of things.
What does it propose as a reason? I have my own idea, so I want to hear what you say. Then I'm gonna throw my idea against you and see what you think.
Yeah, I mean, this is mostly and the book is based on 25, 30 different research documents.
Sure, it's just
but part of it is that the economy shifted in a way that did not help young men if they didn't get a college degree. So the jobs that were dominated by boys, men, transportation, infrastructure, manufacturing, that stuff shit. And so you could graduate without a college degree and get a good paying job. Now, all of a sudden, a lot of those jobs are gone. And we do need to have a full-blown strategy to bring a lot of those jobs back, those jobs that we can bring back. Not manufacturing dolls, but manufacturing all kinds of other things. And you do that with targeted tariffs and incentives. You have to invest in manufacturing here. You can't just launch a global trade war. Anyway, that's one. 2, school never changed. We never fixed school based on what we know to be true about gender. That scientifically, there are some things that boys do better at and a way they learn, and not every boy, and some things that girls do better at. So, but school is the same for both genders, and it is producing a result where girls are graduating at a much higher rate and going on and getting degrees. And it's just getting worse. And so one of the proposals is, because boys, we start a little bit later, and we like to problem solve. We like to learn by doing. But school is set up where you learn by sitting there and listening.
Okay.
And so, my kids went to Montessori, which is more project-based, move around and learn. And so it works. There's all kinds of ways to fix this.
Right.
If people were serious about it, yeah.
I guess in a way I agree to a degree. It sounds like to me we're just reaping the benefits of the patriarchy that we created, right? So there's this patriarchy that's created where by men, by the way, men made this society where we dominate these fields. We dominate the field of transportation, all the ones you name, because of our own fault, right? Like we don't dominate it because we're somehow genetically superior and we just dominate because of the patriarchy. And then when you talk about school, I agree to the degree that school should be this multifaceted thing.
Yeah.
I don't know that I lean into the gender differences there because I think gender is completely a social construct that doesn't have much scientific basis. I think that social construct
and not everyone falls into the
exactly. So I don't know that I buy that is.
That's why I like Montessori, because it really does
for all kids, right? They should do the hands-on, right?
To everyone. And so, like, if you want to go sit and just study vocabulary and learn on your own, that's great. If you want to partner up,
you can do that, right? Bingo. And I was having this conversation, ironically, with a super conservative guy at CPAC before they kicked me out. And he was literally, he had a board up. And he was saying the same thing, where men's graduation down, suicide rates, and all these things are true. But his conclusion was that there is gender inequality towards men. And I was like, it's a wild fucking conclusion to come to, because I was telling him the same shit. This is a patriarchy that we created, B. You cannot.
Why get political? Just solve the problem. Just work with the.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, like right.
Instead of, here's my whole thing. You can't, in no situation can you be the problem and the solution. You know what I'm saying? And the problem with the patriarchy is men created it. So the solution to the patriarchy is make a woman president. Whatever. But
I do want it. Like I do think that it's an issue. It should be one where we can talk about it constructively, because these numbers
they're real numbers.
Suicide numbers are just it scares the shit out of you.
The highest is white males.
Yeah.
And here's what's funny about that. In a system built by white males for white males, where white males are not succeeding to the degree of delusion that the system has convinced them they should succeed, it actually creates a mental health crisis. Because a failure, when you're a white male and you fail in this system, creates this idea of, oh my God, how did I fail? The system was built for me. Even if you don't consciously think that, because we're a system of white supremacy. Then when you're not a white male in the system and you experience failure, you understand the system was built against you anyway. So we literally created our own problem. The system of white male patriarchy and supremacy creating the problem of white male suicide rate. And it should be a candid conversation, but we got to be honest how we arrive to it.
Yeah, I think we have to. My hope is that we start talking about this more, because the suicide rates are terrible. I mean, one story that was in the New Yorker or something. I read it, and just want you to know I do read. It's not in a book, but it was just not a book. It was about the kids in New York.
Yeah,
that Subway surf.
Yeah, I heard.
And the pictures are beautiful in the sense that you see this kid on top of the subway, and it's got the skyline in the back, but it's obviously deadly.
Yeah, it's super dangerous.
And when reporters ask these kids, why do you do it? There is a hopelessness. They're just like, why not? To me, this is one of those things that's like imminently fixable if we all take it seriously and we say, okay, well then how do we invest in kids early on? How do we make sure that we are giving boys and girls what they need? Because it is a little bit different. Not for every boy, not for every girl, but it is a little bit different. And so why not just be nuanced about it and be thoughtful about it and at least try?
No, we definitely need to change our educational approach, 100%. And we need to change how we address poverty. Yeah. But we'll talk about that when we get to the politics portion, because I agree with that completely. We're going to move on to a game I call Sip or Spill.
Yeah.
Okay? Sip or Spill is easy. I'm going to ask you a question. You either spill the tea, in other words, answer the question, or you drink your beer. Now, you can also answer the question and drink beer. I don't care. All right. Yeah, right. Mine too. So, sip or spill. First question. Most embarrassing moment in life.
Oh, my God. I have recency bias. I voted the wrong way yesterday in committee, I obviously was able to correct the record. But when a room full of people laugh and it's members of Congress, it's embarrassing.
That's worse than the classroom last night.
I mean, it was just like, it was like, Mr. Landsman. I was like, yeah, yes. And they were like, everyone's like, well, I was like, no. So I'm recorded. No. So I didn't mess up the vote. But literally the entire room of members of Congress was like,
what committee was it?
Energy and Commerce.
Oh, the one that's under fire right now. Yeah.
Oh, I was like pretty embarrassed. I was like, I was not where I was supposed to be, because I get I want to move around. I was not in my seat. And so I wasn't like, it was 26 hours into this.
I heard about this.
26 hours.
Yeah.
And so I was up, bothering somebody because I'm like, I got to talk.
Yeah, I'm not sitting still that long.
Yeah. So then I was like, I need to go sit myself.
Didn't somebody fall asleep during that committee because it was so long? Yeah, it did. So I'll get that way. I was going to ask you why committee.
That wasn't like,
that's pretty embarrassing.
Sweet.
I wouldn't want to be fucking.
They all laugh.
Oh shit!
Literally, the whole room is laughing at me, and I'm like, I'm not. When you're 26 hours in,
Right.
I was tired, so I'm like, should I be sad about this? That they're all laughing at me?
26 hours, I wouldn't give a fuck. You know what I mean? All right, number 2, and I think you kind of already told us this, but I'm going to ask it anyway because it's on the sheet. What's your guilty pleasure?
Probably drinking. I mean, the problem is drinking to me is like an activity. Like once I have one beer, so I don't drink. I know that I'm drinking right now. There's a cognizance. There's a skedaring. I don't drink, but I don't drink unless I'm on vacation or I'm doing your podcast. But I don't drink because it is my guilty pleasure.
Right. Fair enough.
If I start drinking, then it's like, all right, well, then this is my activity.
Luke Holmes has a song. It's called 1, 2, 10.
Oh, yeah.
You've heard it?
Oh, yeah.
And he says, I forget the exact line, but he says, once I turn it on, I can't turn it off. And the first time I heard his song, Luke Holmes, by the way, grew up down the road from where I grew up. And I heard that song. I was like, fuck, that's me. I love this song. Because, yeah, I'm the same way. One night start, he has out.
My wife has 2 glasses of wine every night, and it baffles me.
How do you do it?
Baffles me, because she's just like, oh, and sometimes she doesn't finish the second one.
Yes.
I'm like, what?
That is literally my wife.
I don't understand.
My wife or your wife is a long time. My wife's a reader, and she can drink. My wife will go to the bar with me. I'm a big motorcycle rider. And, if we're done with the day, kids have been fed, and they're old enough to watch themselves, I ride my bike to the bar, and she'll ride with me sometimes. We'll go to the bar, I'll get a beer, and then she'll get a beer. And I'll get my second one. I was like, oh, I'm done. How the fuck are you done? We're in an environment where people are drinking.
I don't understand.
And how do you drink just one? It's like Lay's potato chips, but beer. I can't have just...
That's like any activity you just started, and someone's like, I'm done. And you're like, but we're just started the activity here.
Yeah, that is true.
So, like, what I worry about retirement because my dad...
What the fuck are you going to do this?
Yeah, my dad won't retire because he's like me or I'm like him. I just like to work. I want to work. I want to constantly be working. I derive joy and purpose. So, like, what am I going to do? And it occurred to me one day, I was like, well, you could day drink in my head. And I was like, oh, okay. That's not a bad...
You can't.
Yeah.
I agree with you, though. When I day drink to the point where I get like a buzz, it does feel like vacation.
Yeah.
And if I'm on vacation doing it, I'm like, man, this is the vacation.
So that's when I let myself drink on vacation.
Right.
Which means that I'm
on vacation right now.
Yeah. All I have to do is fly home. I have a bunch of work left.
Is Congress going out of session?
No, we're back. We're back here Monday or Tuesday.
Okay. I was watching the committee earlier, just off topic, and I heard him.
They're in trouble. This budget bill is going down.
And I heard the chairman recess the committee and say safe travel. I was like, wait a minute, are we going out of session?
Yeah, just for the week.
Just for the weekend. Okay.
So we'll all go home and then come back.
Okay, cool. All right. Sip or spill. This is a very hot topic on the internet. I want you to know that. Do you believe in ghosts?
Yeah.
They're going to be everybody's kind of favorite because
sure.
I was asked this last year, and I said no, and I got beat up by the internet.
Appreciate it.
So, yeah.
It's an absurd take.
Hot take. I don't believe in ghosts. But I do believe in universal consciousness, but I want to hear it.
Then you believe in ghosts.
You think so?
I mean, it's just another way of saying ghosts. You believe something is there.
Something is definitely there that we can't see with our human eyes.
I think ghosts suggest, like, the little... white.
Whatever. Right. Casper.
But the idea that there's something here that you can't see.
So what do you believe as far as ghosts? Do you believe they can interact with the physical world? Do you believe that they can influence your decision making, or do they just exist simultaneous to us?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's a fascinating conversation because it intersects with faith and religion and right. And so my faith is core to who I am, and it's always been there. And that's the thing, like, it's always been there. So I remember it as a kid, just believing in something that I couldn't articulate. That's been God now. Like, I have a deep, deep personal relationship with God. It is like a huge part of who I am.
Sure. I read that you have a degree in theology.
Yeah, I have a degree in theology. I love studying religion and talking about it. But part of that is the idea that you're believing in something that you can't see.
Yeah, right.
And that there's something there that you feel. And then I'm Jewish, but I read a lot of C.S. Lewis, and there's There's in one of C.S. Lewis, he was a Christian writer. One of C.S. Lewis's books, I can't remember the name of the book, but I remember this image, which was the idea that God and the devil sort of play out in our lives, and there was the devil wanted this guy to keep doing what he was doing. But God had sort of sent this, he smelled the hot dog. He was in a Subway, and he smelled a hot dog. If any C.S. Lewis fan, put it in the comment. I'm going to fuck this story up, but what I remember was that there was this smell.
Okay.
And he was like, oh, I want a hot dog.
Right.
And then the devil tries to distract him to keep him in the Subway by doing something else. So he gets distracted. And this idea that there are these things playing out is not inconceivable to me. I mean, I just don't know.
That's kind of how I view universal conscience, which is this. I think that when we die, so I'm an atheist, contrary to in the religious conversation. And I think you are. I'm just kidding. Everybody says that. I know. When I say universe, I swear to God, oh no, you're atheist. But I think that when you die, like this thing that makes us doesn't just dissipate into nothingness. And that's what I think, which is a good segue, by the way. We were just playing Sip or Spill, and I had two more with you. But to stay on time track, as well as to make sure I get this next game in, okay, that's a good segue for my next game. The name of this game is Did God Say That? Okay? And let me tell you the concept here. Conservatives, as you know, in this country, use God to justify all the bullshit. Yeah, right. And we hear a lot about the Christian nationalist movement, which is a very real movement. That's not conspiracy. So I'm going to ask you some things. Because you have a degree in theology, I find you uniquely qualified to answer these questions. And you tell me, did God say that? Okay? Did God say to deport immigrants and make it harder for immigrants to come into your country?
No.
What didn't God say?
So throughout the Bible, both Christian and Jewish scripture, and there are parts of the Quran too, but let's just stay with we talk about America being a Judeo-Christian nation.
Right.
The New Testament, Old Testament, it is about loving every one of God's children, from Abraham through all of the prophets to Jesus. It is that the stranger,
yes, right,
is part of the world in which we have to support and love. And in Matthew, when you get to this moment, it's a very pivotal moment in terms of like understanding the world and what we're supposed to do if you're believing in this.
Right.
Jesus is separating, people that are going to go to heaven and those who are goats and sheep. And part of it was, when I was sick, he says, you were there for me. When I was a stranger in a foreign land, you were there for me. And so that's and the person says, but I wasn't, that wasn't you. And it's like, no, that when you did it for the least of these, when you did it for the least of us, you did it for me.
Right.
Meaning I am in that's me.
Yeah.
And so
meaning that God's in everyone.
Yeah. And so if it is very clear about what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to treat a stranger in a foreign land.
Bingo. Love it. Number 2, did God say that? Did God say to consistently vote against programs to feed the hungry?
No. Again, the exact opposite. It's throughout the Old Testament and the New Testament and Torah and the Bible, but God is very clear about helping the least of these. That is not only important, it is core.
Is core.
Right. Core. And I have lots of tattoos. One of my tattoos is in Hebrew, and it's Micah 6:8. And it's when there's a moment in the Bible. I would argue it's the only moment in the Bible where this specific question is asked of God and a specific answer is given, which is, what are we supposed to do? Which is a very, fundamental question. And God responds through Micah, do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with me. So do justice means that those who are struggling, those who are left out, those who don't have justice and aren't fully free, that's your priority. That's the number one thing that we...
Doesn't mean mass incarceration.
No, I mean, and so literally in Matthew 25, which I mentioned, I believe the first sentence in that, when I was, might be when I was sick, but it's when I was sick, you helped me when I was hungry, you fed me,
So it explicitly says feed on this. Okay, well, what about this one? Because I'm pretty sure God definitely said to criminalize the homeless.
Did not.
What did God say as it pertains to unhoused people?
Again, this is why Matthew 25 is used so much, because he's very clear in Matthew 25, because he's separating people who did the right thing and people who didn't do the right thing. And one of the right things was when I was, I don't know, I can't remember the language, when I was looking for shelter, you provided me house.
So literally all the things that the Republicans are voting against can be found in Matthew 25. I like that. So it makes it easy.
Almost solid, yes.
What about, did God say to vote against free lunch programs for schools?
No, again, you're supposed to feed the hungry.
Did God say spend all your money on a defense budget?
No, in fact, God said, this is where I get a little bit like, God did say,
that's about to get spicy.
He hasn't get a little bit yet. God did say that blessed are the peacemakers. Now, the interpretation, though, isn't necessarily like go be weak, because peacemakers are typically in a place of strength. And so you do have to be in a position of strength in order to make peace. It's an old Romans. This is not biblical, but there's an old Romans saying that if you want peace, prepare for war. So I think it's very important for us to appreciate that those of us, if you want peace, you do have to be able to say, don't do that.
Well, I think there's a certain amount of truth in the fact that if it's understood that I can't be run over, I can't be, trampled on, then
Best show ever.
yeah, right. Exactly. What about this one? Did God say to vote to make us pay for health care?
No. Again, I mean, this is all over Scripture, but again, I'll just stick to Matthew 25 and let everyone just sort of lean into that. That's right.
But God definitely said
you heal the sick.
But God definitely said to have the death penalty.
No.
What about force people to give birth?
God did not say the death penalty or force. No. But let me say this about the pro-life folks.
Because forced birthers.
No, I get it.
Because they're not very pro-life.
I want to be very clear for the top of this that I don't think government and politicians should have anything to do with this. It's an absurd idea that politicians should be making medical decisions.
Agreed.
Full stop. Now, personally, I get why people think as a Jew, it's easier for me because Jews believe that life begins at birth.
Okay.
But let's say you were taught to believe that life begins at conception, which isn't unreasonable.
Sure, it's not crazy. I actually, not to cut you off, but I do a lot of debates with about abortion. I recently had a video that went super duper uber viral on the internet because I was out debating here in DC on the street some pro-lifers. This video got like 40 million. That's crazy, yeah. But I actually I will give them, okay, life begins at conception. So what? That's my response to it. So what? Right? Because that does not then mean that we do X, Y, Z. Because here's my problem with the whole thing. Regardless of where you stand or how you arrive to your position on abortion, what we know emphatically, quantitatively, is that abortion bans kill women. They do, period. Because the fact, by the way, speaking of current news, there's a lady in Georgia right now. I'm sure you've heard about it. You haven't? She's being kept alive. She came in at 9 weeks gestation with some complications and then died. And because Georgia is a forced birth state, they are keeping her alive on life support so that her body can continue to incubate the child, which, by the way, the child has been determined by doctors to not be compatible with life. So even correct. So even if this absurdity of keeping her alive so she can give birth, she's brain dead. She's been brain dead now for a while. Yes. And so, yeah. So this is what abortion bans lead to. Abortion bans lead to women who have miscarriages not getting proper DNCs. Abortions lead to this kind of sick, twisted, Handmaid's Tale scenario in Georgia where a woman, by the way, the woman's family said, please let my daughter pass in peace, right? They should bring it. And they're not letting, they're telling them up. They're making her, the baby to continue to grow, which the baby is not even viable for life.
This is what I mean. Like,
it's crazy.
The state, such an absurd thing. The state should not be involved in medical decisions. Politicians should not be involved in medical decisions. If somebody wants to make that decision on their own because of their religious belief, okay.
Yeah, that's what I say. If you don't want an abortion, or if you don't like abortion, don't fucking get one. You don't like gay marriage, don't do it. You know what I mean? I heard Elizabeth Warren say recently, you hear this, so somebody asked Elizabeth Warren, I loved her answer. They asked her, Senator, if somebody were to say to you, I believe marriage is between a man and a woman, what would you say? And Elizabeth Warren said, I would assume a man's the one asking this. And I love that part. And then she said, I would say to you, just marry one woman. Marry who you are. Yeah, mind your fucking business.
I think this is a moment where my side needs to lean into, there is a libertarian streak in America. It's been there from the beginning. Okay,
interesting.
And there's a little bit in on both sides, or a lot, depending on who you are and where you are on the spectrum. But we're all a little bit libertarian relative to other countries. We believe personal freedom, and to me, these issues are all about personal liberty, and we have to take back the mantle of don't tread on us. Like, this is like, leave us alone. Leave people alone.
But like to the real degree of leave me alone.
Yeah.
Like literally
leave me alone.
Yeah.
I mean,
I agree.
Yeah.
That's a good segue to go into our interview. So this is the part of the show. Now we've had a couple beers. We're loosened up. We've got to know each other. Now we're going to talk about you, and then we're going to transition into some politics. So I want to hear your political take, because that's important. You are the sitting congressman in this country. But to start us off, where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
I'm from Cincinnati. I live in Cincinnati. I grew up in Butler County, outside of Cincinnati. I grew up in Oxford, where Miami University is. I'm a townie. That's what people that go to Miami call us.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah. So I believe I'm the first townie ever elected to the United States Congress.
I'll tell you an interesting fact about you that you might not know. You're only the third Democrat to represent a majority of Cincinnati for more than one term.
That's true.
That's true. Yeah.
I grew up about 10, 15 minutes from JD Vance. JD and I are both from Butler County.
And
you
have Butler County.
And we both ran for national office the same year in 2022.
Okay.
He lives in Cincinnati. He lives a couple of miles from me. I mean, we drive past JD's house to take our kids to school.
If I bought you a carton of eggs.
No.
Okay.
There's
fun to throw it out there.
No, there's some. Anyway, but it's fascinating to me that we both grew up in the same place, had similar experiences. I mean,
but came out.
He would argue that we did, but like similar experience. I went down one path, which took me to divinity school.
Okay.
He went down another path, which took him to Silicon Valley.
Interesting.
And we couldn't be more different.
Right.
And in our district, because it's our district, I'm his member of Congress. About it. Competitive district. It's, this equal number of Democrats, equal number of independents, Republicans. Like, it's really, truly, like, a third of us live in the city, a third of us live in the suburbs. Yeah. Third in rural, Ohio. I won that very purple district by 5.5, and he lost it by 9. And those are the folks who know him the best.
Yeah, I'm going to say, like, that's where you grew up. Which, by the way, as somebody who's from the foothills of Appalachia, where I'm from, Appalachian folk take great offense to fucking JD Vance,
Yeah.
because pretending to be Appalachian.
Well, we grew up in Butler County, not Appalachia. Two, his story is not it's a tough story.
Tough story. Single mom, drug abuse. I get all that.
But we know all these people. Like that's who we grew up with,
Right.
and like they're not assholes. They're not the problem. Like there have been other books written about this issue, and it is big pharma and what big pharma did, and
Agree.
And
I grew up.
the heroes are the people who like, got out of this.
Yeah. And then he came back and it's fixed the shit.
Like, yeah. He doesn't have a hero in this.
Absolutely. I lost my dad, not to like make this like a super fucking depressing moment. I lost my dad, my brother, and my sister to addiction. All the real thing. As a matter of fact, my brother and sister just passed away last year. Addiction is very real where I'm from. I can make a laundry list of people I grew up with. And so the way that JD Vance misrepresents the facts of addiction simply because his mom was addicted pisses me off. But
100%.
yeah, it pisses me off. How would you describe high school you? Did you play sports? Were you instruments?
Why just guess?
I mean, I'm guessing maybe the class clown.
Yeah, I mean,
Because I was actually.
I led my great job. I led my school. I believe I may still have the record for detentions. That's not as freshman sophomore year. I think I got 22 detentions.
Nice.
Not because I was like,
violently out of control.
I just like I talked.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Like it was like the Energy and Commerce Committee meeting where like I was not where I was supposed to be talking to somebody like that.
Right.
But they and one teacher, Miss Plemmings, who was English teacher, you got her your freshman year and then you got her your senior year. I was so disruptive, not because I just would be in the back talking to my.
Yeah, I was literally the same.
Yeah, and she liked me, but she was like, I can't have you in my class for my senior year. Miss Plemmings on the first day, she was like, don't come in. And I was like, what do you mean? I have Zap Pack on. I was like, no, I'm excited to see you. And she's like, me too. I have an arrangement. The teacher across the hall. This is a free period for her, so you're going to sit over there. And I'm like, for today? And she's like, for the semester.
By yourself?
By myself.
Oh, that's tortured it.
Yeah. So I had to sit there, and she would bring me my assignments. But the meanest thing is every once in a while, there's those days where, like, they bring you, they have, like, it's a free day and get food.
Yeah.
From, like, she taught English. It was, like, medieval, food. And, like, everyone brought in a dish.
Right.
And I was like, I walk in, and she was like, no. I was like, I know, but today's like a free day. Like, we're just eating. She's like, I'll bring you a plate.
That's harsh. So did you play any instruments, sports? Were you in any clubs?
I'd like try the trombone once, but
That was a trombone player.
I just wasn't good at it. I liked my friends.
Right.
Liked hanging out with my friends. And I honestly, genuinely liked school. And that was it.
No, I'm the same as you. Like, I was very talkative. I was a pretty smart kid. So, like, school bored me because I got it. I'll pass the test, screaming fuck the test. But I also didn't have the best situation at home. And so school was like my place. Thank you. School was my place to, like,
100%.
collect. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I got a lot of detention and suspension because of that. Got a lot of fights getting suspended a lot. And so, yeah, I can relate completely. So then the question becomes, how'd you go from being the class clowners to get detention and getting sent to a room by yourself to now we're going to college for theology?
Well, I went for my undergrad was in political science economics.
Okay.
Theology was a master's.
Oh, was it? Okay, got it.
My senior year, I had a teacher, Mr. Kober, and he taught government.
Okay.
And I loved it. It was I got into school. I liked the same situation. I'd rather be at school. And, I love my family, but it was tough. And so I liked school and I liked being with my friends and I liked learning. But that class and him as a teacher, I do remember the day where he wrote bicameralism on the chalkboard. And I was like, that's a cool word. That's a cool word. And
Which, by the way, means two parties for those who don't know.
no, two chambers.
Two chambers.
Yes, yeah. Yes. Sorry.
No, I'm glad to do that.
Yeah, there's the Congress is bicameral. There's a House and a Senate.
Two chambers, right?
Yeah, two chambers. Sorry.
Yep.
In any event, I thought that was cool. And so then, I just got into it. And so I thought, well, I don't know what I want to say. So I'm going to pick political science. And then economics to me is fascinating. We won't get into it. But I think everyone should learn a little bit about economics because it explains how the world works.
And don't be an online expert without fucking at least reading a book.
Yes. And then, I met a guy when I got to college. I met a guy who was running for Congress, Ted Strickland, who ended up being in Congress for many years. He was also he was a Methodist minister and just an incredible public servant. I talked to him all the time. He was governor. I talked to him last night for about an hour. I mean, he is a mentor. Yeah, he's also like just a good friend, right? And I was like, yeah, I want to do what he does.
So you knew early on you might run for Congress. That's awesome. Even when you were in college, you were having this conversation. Like
yes, but
how old are you?
48.
So you're 48. So what is that, like 76, 77?
I was born in 76.
76. So as early as college, you're thinking, I want to run for college or Congress. When did you run? Like what year? No, I should say what year did you run? What year did you get elected?
It was 2022.
2022. Okay. Was that your first run or had you? Okay.
But so I took my time.
Went through city council and
yeah. I mean, I decided some of this I think was strategic and some of it was fear based. If I'm being honest,
sure.
Which is I think you got to go do stuff before you run. I think you got to have experiences. You got to have accomplishments. You got to build your reputation. Now there are people who just go out and run, and that's fine. I'm not.
Our system definitely allows for it.
I think that the more you can get under your belt, the more impact you're going to have.
Mm-hmm.
And that was true for me at City Hall. I got a lot done. And in my first year of Congress, I forced a vote on one of the most significant bills that we passed last Congress, which is the Social Security Fairness Act.
Yep.
$20 billion a year goes back to retired public servants, teachers, firefighters, letter carriers. These are police officers. These are people who paid into Social Security, but they weren't getting it because they had state pension. We forced a discharge petition and it got done. I believe that's because, in part, I had 20 years of actually doing work. The other,
you had an idea coming into what you wanted to do. You had a goal in mind.
Yeah,
right.
The other piece was a little fear-based, which is running for Congress is, if you're being honest, it is a little terrifying,
daunting. Yeah,
so I think I probably put it off.
Sure.
And even the decision to run, I waited until the last possible moment. They told me I needed to decide by the end of the year, and it was New Year's Eve day.
Jesus, right?
And I was like,
"All right, fine, I'll do it." Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. I've given a lot of thoughts to myself of running, and it's a daunting fucking thought to even do. So I would not be doing my job if I didn't ask the next question. So this is the part of the show where we get uncomfortable. But there's a lot of conversation about Congress people and their stock portfolios. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
The fucking conversation that happens on and on and on and on and on. And I told you I researched everyone before I interviewed them. And in researching you, I found some, articles that came up about your stock portfolio, that you were selling some stocks related to healthcare. And there was some questions as was, that insider information.
Yeah.
Talk us through that.
So I don't think that members of Congress should buy and sell stocks. And so I started, it took some time, but I started the process of selling all of our stocks. And then putting all of the, our money into managed funds, because then you're not buying and selling stocks. I don't have any insider, I'm on the health subcommittee, but none of the issues.
So you don't really have
No, I don't know if members do. Like, I'm not sure if it's a real issue or it's perceived.
Sure. Perception's a big thing.
Perception is, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, right.
Because trust is what matters most. And so I decided I don't take corporate PAC money because I don't want anyone to think that I am with anyone other than them. And there's too much money in this place. I hate it. Tons. And then the stocks thing, I never was involved personally in the trading of our stocks. There's somebody who does that for my wife and me.
So you're saying the decisions that are being questioned right now weren't even decisions you made.
I never made it.
No. It's the portfolio manager.
Correct.
Got it. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, I wouldn't know where to begin. But I did think to myself, I don't care. Like, I want to get out of this. I want to be one of the first members of Congress to sell all of their stocks and be in compliance with a bill that I'm co-sponsoring, I'm leading, called the Trust in Congress Act, which bans members of Congress from trading stocks.
Interesting. Okay, so
then I thought, well, yeah, but my dad was a big believer, still is, that it's the spirit of it. It's not just like if you put your name on something, do it. So my name's on it, and so are a bunch of other people. But like, if I'm not in compliance, then that's bullshit.
Yeah, it's fucking watch what I say and not what I do.
So we started a process of selling. As I said to my guy, like, just sell everything and move it all into mutual funds. I want to be in compliance. Turns out, I may be the first ones who have done this.
Seriously.
And it is very expensive because you sell your stocks and there's a capital gain.
Yeah, right.
And our taxes were nuts this year.
Yeah.
But my wife, God bless her, was like, you know what? It's the right thing to do.
It's the right thing to do. We fucking do it. It costs a little money. Well, that clears the air. So if you saw the articles on Greg Landsman, I like to hear that. I wish I could ask that same fucking question to like every member of Congress.
I think you get a chance to now because you could say, well, Landsman sold all his stock.
You fucking do it, right?
And
I think what you to your point. I don't know that Congress has insider information, but by virtue of your job, you know what's going.
Looks like it. It definitely.
You know what's going on.
When I see it,
exception's going to be there.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, but there was a stock. He was selling. My guy was selling all the stocks, including some healthcare stocks. And somebody was like, he just sold all these healthcare stocks, and he's on the health subcommittee. It's like 100%. I see what you mean. All the more reason why I want out.
Wipe my hands of the shit. Right. Exactly. That makes sense. Guys, at this point, we're coming up on the end of the show. I want to take just like 2 questions from the audience. The congressman does have a busy schedule, so I can't tell all the questions. I would love to. The rules of this show are this. Put your question in the chat, but you need to tell me what state you're from. So that way, when we read the question, I know what state you're asking from. That's not because if you're not from the congressman's state, we don't give a shit. But I like to show people from all over asking these questions. So, Morgan, whatever question you pick, we'll take it. There's like a 30-second delay between me saying it and the people typing.
Can I say something in those seconds? Probably they're typing. You're very respectful, so you call me Congress.
Yes, sir.
But I want to make a point. I try to ask I say to everyone, call me Greg. And it's not a shtick. It is part of a larger strategic effort to rebuild trust. Part of it is don't take corporate PAC money. Don't trade stocks. Call me by my first name.
Fair.
There's a huge disconnect between politicians and the people we represent. And I do think the more personal and like stuff like this.
Yeah, literally. Not even shit you. Like,
you call me Greg, it become that gap.
Yes.
Shrinks a little bit, which is good.
And that actually, it was the idea behind why I started this show. Yeah. I want to start the show, but like, hate to know your comments. I wish some Republicans would sit down with me. We've been in contact with.
I think they will at some point.
We've been in contact with about 5 of them. They've all declined. But like, the fact is, like, just be yourself. And I might ask them hard questions. Just answer the question. But, I agree with you. The more that we know that our Congress people, I'm Greg. I grew up in fucking Cincinnati. I goofed off in school. I got detention, but I'm a real person. Here I am. That's important. Do we have a question?
Yeah, this is a question from Mallory from California.
Mallory from California asked, with your degree in theology and political science, how do we address the conflicts that are around the world that are directly tied to religion?
Wow.
Hard question.
Well, it's one of the reasons why I got the degree in theology. I applied to divinity school days after 9/11.
Wow.
Because I was to be part of the next generation of leaders. And I thought that, among other things, we needed to understand religion better and the role religion plays in all of this.
Okay.
And so I study a lot of it, and including courses on conflict, religion and conflict, how it plays out. And
right.
I guess where I landed and where I am now is religion is a huge part of people's lives, most people. And it can be, and for most people, it is a good thing. It gives them purpose. It gives them something to believe in and hold on to, and that's wonderful. It's hope, and it encourages them to go out and do good things in the world. There are religious fundamentalists in every religion. and that kind of extremism is very dangerous. And so that's what you have to separate. You have to separate this small percentage of folks who took their religious beliefs to the extremes, and they are now extremists, and it is very dangerous, from everyone else, which is 98% of everybody else, and they believe in it because they want purpose and
Do you think that there's a religion that's exempt from what you just said? Or may it say that there are radicals in every religion?
So if you take Christianity, there are extremists. So if you take Judaism, they're extremists. So if you take Islam, they're extremists. If you take Hinduism, they're extremists. I believe there are examples of Buddhists who have, someone fact check me on this one, but I believe there are examples where there have been extremism.
Really?
Yeah.
That would actually shock me.
Funny fact, it's a small number, but someone fact check that. But the point is,
religion can be co-opted into extremism.
That's what you have to like, and that's what
So then how do we deal with the conflicts that come from that? Like the conflicts that come from, because I think the person asking the question is saying, you're right, there's extremist in these religions. And from that comes conflict that countries are fighting wars over. How can we address it?
I think you want, number one is appreciate that the extremists are always 1-2%. 98% of the people who are in that same situation believe in, that same thing. They believe in it, but they want to live a normal life and not trying to go and kill and tear others. And when you isolate the extremists, you've got a fighting chance of resolving it in a positive way. Then I think you have to appreciate that the extremists are using religion to do something, and that something is about power and wealth, and you have to resolve the underlying issues that give them energy. So there are underlying economic, political issues that would convince somebody who's not an extremist to agree with
extreme ideologies.
And so you have to deal with those basic. You gotta separate the extremists from everyone else, and then everyone else needs to get their needs met.
I like that answer a lot. So unfortunately, we can't take.
What do I have?
We can't take another question.
So
we can't take another question. I apologize. This has been a great conversation. I hope that you guys have gotten to know Greg Landsman better. I plan on bringing people back for follow-up, so I'm going to hit you on that.
We could do just questions if you want.
Yeah. And before you go, we do have a gift for you for being on our show. I want to present that to you.
Why is this less than $10? The gift, but can relax.
I make sure all...
Is it 5? I think it's 25. Yeah.
I make sure that all my gifts to Congress people stay within the accepted standards. I got you an under the influence glass.
By the way, also, as long as you keep it in the office, it's fine.
Really?
Yeah. So
there we go, right there. And under the influence glass representing
Johnny Bench, Cincinnati Reds baseball.
So we're in compliance. I can't thank you enough for trusting me enough to do the show with us. Thank you for your time. The next episode will be Tuesday, May 20th. And actually, that episode is going to be at my venue. We finally secured a venue. It's going to be a distillery downtown D.C., and it will be with Representative Eric Swalwell. So on Tuesday, Representative Eric Swalwell at 5:30 p.m. 5:30 p.m. Tuesday. Join me under the influence episode 3. Greg, thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. Awesome.